Now, ideally, geologists would like to develop a continuous history of the earth, and to document the continuous history of earth, data is gathered from different parts of the world, because there is no single place on the earth where the entire 4.6 billion years rock record was preserved. Now, the rocks may not preserve, maybe due to erosion, or maybe simply there was no deposition. So whatever may be the reason, one place of the earth does not contain the entire rock depositional sequence. So we have to collect data from different parts of the world, and we are approaching to fulfill the gaps, and thereby compiling a complete history of the earth. Now, for that, geologists combining evidences from many localities. To do this, rocks of same age from different localities must be matched, must be made equivalent, and this process is known as correlation. Matching and of rock units does not tell us about their age equivalency. We cannot call them as correlated or correlative, and the process cannot called as correlation. So on some physical properties of the rock, they should be matched, and these rock units obviously are exposed in different areas. On some physical properties, they should be matched, and not only matched, they should be matched in terms of their age. That means they have age equivalent also. They should have deposited during same time interval. Then only we call the process as correlation, and the rock units are known as correlated or correlative units. Now, in this way, basically we are following the law, that is the law of original lateral continuity. According to this law, it states that until or unless there is any kind of disturbance or any kind of restriction, the rock layers should have deposit laterally for an infinite distance. So after the formation of those rocks, if law of lateral continuity satisfied, then if we walk over through a particular type of rock unit, then in any direction we will go, we will get the same kind of rock. So simply by walking over the exposed rock, we can correlate them from one area to one area. Say for example, here in this picture, say for example, one geologist is standing here and he try to correlate this unit over which he or she is standing now. So the simplest method of correlation or correlating this litho unit over which he or she is standing right now is to just walk around this place. So he or she can go in this direction, he or she can go in this direction, but make sure that he or she is walking over the same lithology. and up to the distance, or the distance up to which these litho units over which the man or woman is moving on, that much portion he or she can clearly say that it is not exposed, or if it is isolated for a far distance, then this kind of correlation technique cannot be used. You can see in this picture that this layer is exposed, you can see in different areas. Only there are some certain very uh, small amount of discontinuity due to formation of this small river or small nala, but without or expect that this layer, one can see that it is laterally continuous. So the question comes that if rock layers are laterally continuous, then we can correlate it simply by laterally tracing. But if it is not continuous, then how we correlate or how we determine the equivalency of rock layers which are exposed in two different areas, and there is a vast distance between these exposed rock units? We have to observe whether the litho units are same or not, as well as they have to closely look the appearance of that particular rock unit with respect to its upper and lower litho unit. So suppose we are going to observe this orange colored sandstone. So from the lithological symbol, we know that this is a sandstone. The color is slightly orange colored, so I called it as orange colored sandstone. Now in this section, that is in B, we get a orange color sandstone. Similarly in C section we get another orange color sandstone. Now our job is to go for correlation and try to find out whether these orange color sandstones are equivalent or not. Now from the lithology you can see that they are identical, they are same. So now the second part of the correlation, that is whether they are deposited during same time interval or not. Now it is most likely that whether two sections which is now separated by a sensible distance, if they are deposited due to same geological processes and deposited during same time interval, then definitely its upper and lower litho units should be same or should be identical. But if these litho units are deposited at different time intervals, then there is a high chance that its upper and lower units should be different. Now here you can see that on the basis of lithology, if we try to match the lithology, this one is exactly same with this one. And if we look at the stratigraphic position, that it means the appearance of this particular strata with respect to its upper and lower units, we can see in B column this orange sandstone occurs above the limestone unit and below a limestone unit, whereas in C column we also find that this orange sandstone occurs above this limestone and below another limestone. So from this stratigraphic occurrence, that in both sections this orange color sandstone is basically sandwiched between two limestone units, we can say that they are deposited during same time interval. That means they are equivalent in age. So we can correlate lithologically, or we can correlate on the basis of lithology and stratigraphic occurrence, these two rock units, which are now separated by some features or by some distance. Now, in this picture, you can also see that if we try to correlate the rocks that are distributed, that are exposed in different areas. Say, for example, we are targeting this yellow colored sandstone layer. So you can see that this yellow colored sandstone layer is occurring in all the four exposed rock columns. But from the surface, they are at different depth. If we consider this is as surface condition. So say for example, so we can see that this yellow color layer's depth is different from the surface for different columns. Okay. Now we have to firstly look whether their lithology is same or not. So first thing first, we are uh, gathering data of the lithology of this yellow colored sandstone unit, and we find that lithologically they matched. All these columns matched. The second part that we have to determine, that is whether they are equivalent in age or not. So what we learned previously, that we have to consider the upper and lower bounding units, whether they are same or not. Now, for this three column, you can see that this yellow colored sandstone unit is bounded in its upper side by some shale layer. These horizontal lines are indicating of a shale sedimentary layer, whereas the lower litho unit of this yellow sandstone unit is a dolomite layer. So on the two aspects, that is the same lithology and same stratigraphic appearance, that is the upper and lower unit are same in all these three columns. So you can say that this litho unit is correlatable in these three columns. In these three columns, the yellow sandstone is correlatable. But in the fourth column, you can see that the lower litho unit is not a dolomite. It is different. It is either a igneous or a metamorphic body. But the upper litho unit is same like the other columns. The upper unit is also shell. Now, here you have to be a little conscious. Two interpretation we can take. Firstly, on the basis of lithology, it is matched, but as the stratigraphic appearance is different, stratigraphic occurrence is different. So initially, we should go for not correlative unit, that this sandstone unit is not correlatable with this. But if we go into more detail, and if we go taking into consideration the local geological history, that is the igneous activity, structural things, all other things, then locally there may be some igneous or metamorphic uh, activities there, over which this sandstone is deposited. That may happen, and the basement rock for deposition of this sandstone is different here, but after that the deposition conditions is same like all other areas, like in this area and this area. So initially it starts with a different litho unit, but later the condition become same. So with some amount of doubt or with some amount of hesitation, we can correlate this yellow color sandstone with other units, because at least here the lithology is same and the upper unit is same like the all other columns. So with some amount of doubt, with some amount of hesitation, we can correlate it, but we have to go for other geological check to fulfill the correlation process. Now, the process previously described in which graphic occurrence for rocks exposed in geographically isolated areas. Now, that process have also limited in extent. Mainly, that process we use for rocks which are um, separated for a smaller distance. But if rock units are separated or rock units are isolated by a vast distance, then that lithological appearance or those things that may not, or uh, those processes may be uh, problematic, because we know that there was lateral facies variation depending on change in energy condition of the same geological process. Say for example, if a fluvial deposition occurs, say for example the river Ganga, although the same river is coming from the Himalayas and it summits or it ends in Bay of Bengal. So the same fluvial process occurs all over the places over which it flows. But depending on the energy condition, at some places you are getting large amount of boulders such as in Rishikesh, Gangotri, uh, Haridwar, all those places. So there the energy condition of river Ganga is very high. Whereas in other places, you will get relatively finer sediments. So although all these deposition occurs at the same time, so on the basis of age, they are equivalent, but you can see that they show lithological heterogeneity. That means lithology is different. So as facies variation occurs in nature, so that becomes a concern to a geologist or to a stratigraphers. And depending on that, when rock units are separated for a large distance, then that kind of lithological similarity, that means uh, lithological matching or stratigraphic position, that might not help a geologist. So those rock units which are isolated for a vast distance, in that case we have to look for a particular depositional unit, particular rock unit which is not usual. That means in regular day-to-day process, that rock unit, that rock a layer is not depositing. And those units which indicate an abnormal event that take place at some interval of time due to which that particular rock layer is deposited, we call them as marker bed or key bed. So as these events are generally abnormal, it indicates a certain um, phenomenon due to which these layers are deposited. So generally these are thin, and if it affects a larger area, then we must get these layers widespread, and they must be synchronous because these are not day-to-day processes. So that indicate an abnormal phenomena which only occur at certain period of geological time. So with the help of these key beds or these marker beds, we can correlate rock layers which are separated by a vast distance. Now here you can see this ash bed, say for example the iridium rich bed which we know deposited after the KT boundary mass extinction, that is at the end of Cretaceous. Now this enrichment of iridium with the sedimentary layers is not a regular phenomena. There is certain amount of iridium deposited in all sedimentary unit deposited today, but that iridium concentration is very low. But after the KT boundary mass extinction, that is at the end of Cretaceous, geologists get a thin layer in which the concentration of iridium is abnormally high than the background values. So this abnormality or this abnormal high value of iridium indicate a geologist of some abnormal incident which has happened during that time. So with the help of these kinds of uh, abnormal depositions, that means those depositions which are not taking place in day-to-day events, say for example the iridium bed or some maybe some asphalt layers which are um, primarily thought to be deposited due to some massive volcanic eruption. Now if the volcanic eruption is very local, then it is only spreading a few kilometer or few tens of miles distance from the source. But if it has to deposit it, or if it we had to found it globally, then the volcanic eruption should be pretty much high so that it can be spread along the atmosphere globally, and we found the deposit in all the places of the earth globally. Now again, this kind of abnormal volcanic eruption is occurring in almost every day in every volcanic centers of earth, but their vastness is not so high such that we expect the deposition of ash layers which are coming out from that volcanic eruption to be found in all the places of earth. So whenever we get a volcanic asphalt deposit in all the places of earth, that indicates an abnormality of volcanic eruption. That means the volcanic eruption is so high that it uh, supply a lot of volcanic ash into the atmosphere, and at suitable condition that volcanic ash is deposited in all the places of earth. So these kinds of abnormality in geological incidents which are not normal, which are violating the background level of deposition, those sedimentary layers, those beds, those litho units are known as key beds or marker beds, and they are very much helpful for global or across continental correlation. Now, in this picture, you can see that when the rock units are separated by a large distance. You can see this outcrop A and outcrop B are separated by a large distance. And what we look for in terms of lithological correlation, when they are separated by a large distance, we are trying to find any kind of marker bed or key bed. But the thing is, if the rock layers are separated by long distance and there is no key layer or there is no marker bed, then how do we correlate rocks which are exposed over great distances? Now, in this case, lithological correlation will not help us, and then we have to go for the biological entities present as fossils in the rocks. Now, fossils are the ancient organisms living at that conditions. So after their death, they are preserved in the rock records and they are giving signatures of the ancient biological entities. Now, to do biological correlation, we have to look whether two rocks contain the same kinds of fossils or not. Now, for biostratigraphic correlation, so often we are going to find out, instead of one fossil, to more than one fossils, because for preservation of one fossil, it might have depend on the taphonomic condition, or taphonomy plays a vital role for preservation of a single fossil. So instead of one fossils, we are fossils. As you can see in this picture here, that here these two fossils on the left hand side are same as they are found in the right hand side. Similarly, these three are same as here. So you can see, in terms of biological entities, in terms of fossils, the fossils found in these two columns, they are same, they are identical, and also as biological bodies are following the law of evolution, so they must present in Earth for a restricted period of geological time. That means the presence of identical fossils in these two rock columns indicate that they are also age equivalent. So not only they are helps us in correlation or to construct age equivalency, but also you can see that in these two column, in the left hand side and right hand side column, you can see that there is a gap in the left hand column. So there might be erosion or there might be absolute non-deposition. But depending on this biostratigraphic correlation, we can simply uh, draw, or we can simply construct a composite section by gathering data from both sides or both the rock columns. So the gap which was previously found to occur in the left hand side rock deposition, that might be filled up from the data of this right hand column rock layers. So by this way, the geological history of the earth can be better interpreted, can be better drawn. Now here you can see in the two columns on left hand side and right hand side, if you go for lithologic correlation, there are lithological identical units, but lithostratigraphic correlation is also based on the similar appearance of rock layers with respect to its upper and lower units. So when they are separated by a vast distance, in this case it is about 100 kilometers, you can see that in the left hand side, if you look at the rock sequence, then at the extreme bottom there is a metamorphic unit, then is a shale unit, then a sandstone, and then limestone. But in the right hand side, it started with a igneous body, then sandstone, then limestone. So you can see the appearance of rock units, little units, is extremely different, is entirely different in these two sides rock column. So instead of lithocorrelation, biostratigraphic correlation is a better tool for correlation in these situations. And if same kinds of fossils, same kinds of biological active entity are found in both the rock units of these two areas, although they may be lithologically slightly different, their stratigraphic occurrence may be slightly different, but identical biological entity, biological fossil indicate that they are deposited during same time interval. Now, another kinds of fossil is important for designating or for indicating global correlation. Um, Generally, these kinds of fossils are used for intercontinental or global correlation when the distance between the rock columns is very large. Certain characters are to be satisfied to call them as index fossil. Firstly, they should be abundantly preserved in rocks and they can be easily identified. They should have wide ecological tolerance. They must be preserved in geological widespread areas. They have rapid evolutionary rate, and if they show rapid evolutionary rate, then definitely they will exist in Earth for a relatively short period of time. So until or unless the fossils are found to present in different ecological conditions, they will not show geographically widespread distribution. And until or unless they did not have a rapid evolutionary rate, they did not have a relatively short period of existence in Earth history. So all these characters must have to satisfy to call them index fossils for taking them into consideration for intercontinental or global correlation. And as these index fossils are present in a relatively short period of time, so these index fossils, or with the help of these index fossils, we can often go for age of rocks that contain these fossils. In this picture, you can see at the bottommost portion in the right hand column and left hand column, the fossils are almost similar. You can see that this fossil is same to this one is same to this is same to this one, and this is same to this one. So among the six in the left hand side, four, and among the five in the right hand side, four are matched and identical in these two rock columns. So you can again see that instead of going for one fossil, we are considering more than one fossil, and on the basis of that, we can correlate these two layers which are exposed to different areas. Now, apart from these four, there are other kinds of fossils found in both these rock columns, and that might indicate slight depositional environmental variation. In the second layer, in both sides, the fossils are exactly same. In the third layer, you can see on the left hand side there is a single fossil. In the right hand side, there are three fossils. This heterogeneity in fossil occurrence might be due to some depositional uh, energy condition variation. Might be that may be due to bathymetry, that may be due to salinity variation. So the fossils found in the right hand side are not all present in the left hand side. Similarly, due to different in energy condition variation due to different in depositional environments, the layer 4 and 5 fossils which are present in the right hand side, that depositional environment might not be there in the left hand side, or as you can see these layers are inclined, so might be the um, deposition takes place in the left hand side, that might be eroded. So that is why we did not find the 4 and 5 layers. So this absence of 4 or 5 layers fossils in the left hand side might be due to erosion, or maybe simply difference in depositional environment. For that is why they are here deposition not taking place at all. Again, the sixth layer having the same types of fossils, which again go for their age equivalency. Apart from lithological and biological correlation, a third type of is used, that is chronostratigraphic correlation or chronocorrelation. Here we are determining the absolute age of the rock with the help of isotope dating methods. But again, things to remember that it is not that we are collecting samples and go for isotope dating, because isotopic dating is highly expensive. So firstly, you are depending on field methodologies like the lithostratigraphic and biostratigraphic correlation. At the final stage, if we at all require the absolute age, then only we go for isotopic dating, and on the very basis of that isotopic dating, we get the numerical values of depositional age or formation age of those rocks, and on the basis of that numerical values, we can correlate the rock records found in different areas. Apart from chronocorrelation, in recent years, a different technique is also used for correlation, that is known as chemostratigraphic correlation or chemocorrelation. In this, we use isotopic signatures, that is the percentages of uh, presence of different isotopes of different chemical elements. So that indicates that same kinds of geological process is acting over that. But one has to very much conscious that same kinds of geological process may repeat. So whether they are age equivalent or not, although their isotopic signatures may be same, age equivalency may be different. So that should take into consideration, or people must aware about that fact before going for chemostratigraphic correlation. But again, before going chemostratigraphic correlation, people have to go through the lithologic and biostratigraphic correlation. And another type, that is the magnetostratigraphic correlation. Here geologists or stratigraphers use the magnetic properties, magnetic orientation of magnetic minerals with respect to the present day Earth's magnetic field, and depending on that, they will correlate the rocks. Apart from these different types of correlation, there are other ways. There are seismic data, there are transgression regression events. On the basis of that, correlation can also be done. So I'm just giving here a brief idea about the different correlation technique. Hope it will help you. Thank you.